Another huge day here in the cryptocurrency market, with Bitcoin setting another new all-time high here in the last hour, which is now 121,000 US dollars per Bitcoin. And in today's video, we're going to jump into some price comparisons here on how Bitcoin's played out over the last 2 months compared to similarities we're seeing here on gold and what ended up leading gold to go on for its breakout and its big bull run. We're going to dive in here and have a look at the Bitcoin dominance and see similarities to how things played out in November of last year. And then we're going to tie all of that in with XRP here, what we're seeing here on the XRP price chart, and just how far along XRP is progressing in this breakout structure in comparison to coins like Litecoin and XRP cycle from 2017. So lots to jump into today here, guys. So let's dive in. The first thing I want to touch on here is actually gold. And if we have a look at gold's price, we can see it's been on quite a bit of a run here. But not too long ago, gold actually came in and put in similar price structure like we've seen on Bitcoin here in the last month or so, where we've seen the high come in, we've seen price sell off, scoot back up to the highs, and then we'd seen that ABC correction here on Bitcoin, which eventually led to the breakout from that range. And now we have Bitcoin where it is today in this breakout stage. And if we actually have a look at gold here, we see very similar things where we see that high get swept, the ABC correction, and then eventually gold goes on to break out in quite an aggressive style, similar to how we've actually seen Bitcoin break out over the course of the last week in quite an aggressive style. And what's really interesting about this is if we actually jump in here and have a look at a lower time frame structure, the first thing we'll notice is that once Bitcoin actually breaks out of this range, you see there's a small area of consolidation underneath the old all-time high before Bitcoin eventually shoots out to the upside, goes into the consolidation phase that we just seen play out over the weekend, and then again shoots to the upside like we've just seen in the last 24 hours. And if you have a look at gold here, you'll see very similar price structure play out, where once gold revisited the top of its range highs here, there was this consolidation phase, which then led gold to break out to the upside. And then we went into this phase here, where you can see gold actually chops around here, revisits the high, sets this double low here. And then what you start to see is gold actually break to the upside here, chop around a little, and then eventually it breaks, consolidates, and then it goes. And then if we have a look at Bitcoin here on the lower time frames, we can see that Bitcoin's put in similar structures here, where it has had that same double low, it's revisited the highs, it's chopped around up here, and now it's in that stage where it is breaking out, similar to gold. Once gold broke out from these ranges here, we've seen a little bit of sideways action before gold eventually continued up, had a bit more of a correction, but then it continued to go and go and go until where gold's price is at today. And that right now Bitcoin is in that phase where I think it's just broken out, set a new all-time high. And what we're actually seeing playing out on Bitcoin right now in comparison to this chart is this candle right here, which then ends up leading into a little bit of sideways consolidation and then a break to the upside. And right now you can see on Bitcoin, we have had that same candle. And on top of all of this, what we're starting to see is the Bitcoin dominance is actually breaking down during this entire move. And what's most interesting about the Bitcoin dominance actually breaking down here is that if we have a look back here, back in November of last year, when Bitcoin's price actually broke to the downside, and we've seen this initial crash in the Bitcoin dominance, which was when coins like XRP and a lot of the altcoin market actually outperformed and went on crazy runs during this moment. What we actually seen was the dominance slowly started creeping up here for Bitcoin. We've seen it initially sell off, then bounce back up. Then we've seen the dominance sell off again, get about 50% of the way down before then spiking up for a new high. And then that's what led into that crazy sell-off here in the Bitcoin dominance. And if we have a look at how price is playing out today, what you'll see is price is actually playing out quite similar. Well, we've seen that initial sell-off for the Bitcoin dominance. Then we've seen price spike back up, set a new high here. And that if things were to play out like they did back in November of last year, we should see the dominance come a little bit lower down to that 50% area roughly, and then it could potentially spike back to the upside and then come crashing down. And that could be where we start to see some of the biggest returns here for coins like XRP, which if we have a look at how XRP is playing out, we can actually see that it ended up spending the weekend consolidating like we touched on Friday's video, and now actually breaking to the upside again. And what we can see here on the XRP price chart is that similar to the way things played out in November last year, once XRP did break out from this range, like it has broken out from now, we're starting to actually see XRP push to the upside here after consolidating over the course of the weekend. Similar to the way things played out in November, once it did break out from the range, we did eventually see XRP actually push higher here. And I think that this push here that we could start to see next on XRP, which I believe has already started, could be due to the upcoming news events for XRP over the course of the next day, with ISO 2022 going live on the 14th in the US, which is less than 24 hours from now. And I think that when we do see XRP's price actually spike to the upside here, like we've seen back here in November, it's a perfect time to actually see the XRP dominance shoot to the upside. And if you have a look at XRP's market cap dominance here, you'll see that it has broken out from this range here, shot to the upside, and we are in that first stage of correction, which is very interesting because if we actually have a look back to how things played out back in November, you'll start to see once XRP actually had that first shoot up on the market cap dominance, went for that first stage of correction, and then shot up from there. That was a very important zone, which then ended up leading to XRP outperforming the market. However, this zone right down here that played out in November, once XRP had started to outperform against the rest of the cryptocurrency market, is starting to play out right now in this level here. And if we do see XRP's market cap dominance actually shoot to the upside here and continue to follow the way things actually played out in this area here, then this is another confirmation that we're seeing similar things play out here on the XRP dominance, and that the price chart could shoot a lot higher, a lot faster. And then if we actually have a look back to Litecoin in 2017 here, and we try to pinpoint where we are, you'll know that if you're a viewer of the channel here, once we actually got through this ABC correction here on Litecoin back in 2017 during its mid-cycle correction, you'll notice that once we got through that, we did shoot quite aggressively back up to that 702 Fibonacci retracement level, before then consolidating and grinding to the upside here and then shooting up higher. And then if we have a look at XRP on higher time frame here, you can see that if we grab our Fibonacci retracement tool from the top of XRP to the low of the initial sell-off, the same way we actually draw it here on the Litecoin chart, where we take it from the top of XRP to the low of the initial sell-off, you can see that XRP on today's price chart is sitting at that 702 Fibonacci retracement level after coming out of its ABC correction, similar to the way Litecoin actually performed here. And now what we're seeing is XRP actually sit at and battle against that same area that Litecoin sat and battled against. And then eventually we did see Litecoin break to the upside here. And I think that is what we should start to see next on XRP here. And I think once XRP actually gets past all of these retracement levels and gets back to the top of the range here at $3.40, what we should start to see is the explosive moves happen, like the way things played out on Litecoin here, where it did just shoot to the upside quite aggressively and then go on to complete a full extension and shoot even a little bit higher than that. Which again, if we have a look at XRP, if we're to mirror something quite similar, and XRP does get quite violent and quite aggressive here, shoots to the upside, we clear through that $8.60 zone, get a little higher, we should start to see potentially a $10 XRP if things play out similar to the way they did on Litecoin here. Which so far everything has played out quite similar, and we are seeing things continue to play out similarly even in these corrective zones here at these same levels. As you can see, Litecoin did stall out and reject off this 702 level, similar to the way that XRP is reacting right now, rejecting from this 702 Fibonacci retracement level, as we can see on the left here, and stalling out in these same zones. So all in all, I think we're starting to see everything we do want to see here for a continuation on XRP, and that with today's recent Bitcoin push up to $121,000, and with the way that the XRP dominance actually reacted back in November of last year, where we did see it break from this range quite aggressively here and end up shooting to the upside. I do think if we do see the dominance play out similar in today's price chart, shoot to the upside, that most likely will take XRP's price quite aggressively with it, similar to the way things played out in November here, where we started to see XRP's price shoot up quite aggressively, which then also lines up with Litecoin from 2017, as I do believe we are roughly in this area here for the XRP price chart, and the next move is up for XRP, similar to the way Litecoin moved up from these regions once rejecting from that 702 Fibonacci retracement level. And I think all of that is going to be possible if Bitcoin continues to push up here, similar to the way gold actually ended up pushing up here. And that if we actually do start to see Bitcoin consolidated here and then break to the upside, similar to the way gold did in this zone here, then this should allow lots of room for XRP to actually expand and start to see things play out like they did on the right side here back in November of last year. So all in all, guys, very excited with the way things are playing out. Everything we've touched on over the last month is continuing to play out, and we are seeing XRP's price react exactly like we wanted to see. And so far, there has been no surprises. And that if things continue to play out like this, we should be in perfect market conditions to see XRP eventually get back to the top of this retracement range here, break out from that $3.40 high that it set back in January earlier this year. And then if we see that, it should be fireworks all the way up to a full extension here, similar to the way that things played out on Litecoin. And of course, similar to the way things played out on XRP here in 2017, after you can see bear market, mid-cycle correction, break to the upside. And then once XRP actually shoots above this high here, things just go parabolic. And that right now, if we're to actually have a look at where we think we are in this 2017 XRP example, it is most likely in a zone like this where we've seen that initial push up, sell off, a bit of consolidation and correction here over the weekend, and that XRP is likely to continue this move the same way it did in 2017, and that it shouldn't be too long before we actually see a new all-time high here on XRP. So guys, I'll be back tomorrow if we start to see price develop a bit more. We should see a lot of price action play out tomorrow on XRP, as there is a big news event, and most likely during these events we actually do see price shoot to the upside and then most likely take a lot of it back. But in that moment we can find support and then continue from there, similar to the way that XRP actually played out in November of last year. Even though there was no news event in this, I'm still thinking that price will play out quite similar, and that during tomorrow's announcement we could see XRP's price shoot to the upside, similar to the way it did here. So I'll be back either tomorrow or Wednesday to keep you guys updated on how that ends up playing out, and we'll do a bit more of a fundamental video where we won't spend as much time on the charts and we'll actually have a look at what some of these rules and regulations can actually mean for Ripple and XRP. But until then, make sure you subscribe to the channel, leave a like on the video, and if you have any questions, drop them down below in the comment section. And I'll see you guys soon to update on how this is all going to play out.